If politicians can do that at the drop of a hat, do you think they'll think twice of offing you? If only I could rule these people with an iron fist, they would have better lives. Because I'm better than them. Look at my life. I've been to university. I've got a good job, good pension. I'm a professional. I'm being paid to help these people, these peasants.
How are we doing, everybody? Welcome back to the Sean Atwood channel. I'm Ron Swanson. I've got a dodgy camera again today, everybody, so I do apologize, but we're live with Nick Buckley, MBE, and we're going to be diving into a few points of topics. The global forces and letter groups, secret societies, the allure of power, politicians and the elites, and we're just going to sort of have a little discussion about that today, Nick. But before that, how are you? And please introduce yourself. It's great to have you here. I'm
good. Thank you for the invitation. For people who don't know me, I'm basically nobody. but I am. I'm just a kid off a council estate. Went to a failing school in Manchester. Scraped by school. Didn't go to university. Went traveling around the world, backpacking for a little bit. Came back and got my proper first job in my third decade. So I was 30 years old. Got my first. Wow. Working for the council. Stopping young people getting involved in crime and antisocial behaviour. Then I took redundancy. I set up a charity doing that same sort of work, working on the streets in the evenings, weekends, in the tough neighbourhoods, stopping kids making poor choices. Hello. Then I set up some homeless projects, charities. And then I was cancelled in 2020 for daring to criticise Black Lives Matter. Everything I said then, everyone's saying now. I was just ahead of the curve. Not because I was brave, but because I was stupid. I thought I was a free man in a free country with a right to speak how I wanted. And then 5 years ago, I sort of moved into politics then. I've stood for Mayor of Greater Manchester last two elections against Andy Burnham. The last election, I came third as independent. And I just recently joined Advance UK, and I'll probably be standing for them at the coming election. So what I'm trying to do now is get my hands on the levers of power to make some change.
And what elements would your focus be on change? I mean, the UK is a mess. All right, we've got to tiptoe around some things, so I'll kind of steer you away from things that we can't delve too hard into for various reasons. But I mean, where are the problems coming from here, Nick? What would be your first sort of cause of action, so to say?
So if we're looking at an umbrella view of it, then I've got 2 points. I always talk about we need a much smaller state and we need to promote personal responsibility, because you can't have one without the other. So what I mean is we've got to a stage now in our country. I mean, I'm 57. I'm older than you. I remember when we weren't a socialist state, but with a socialist state now, everything we do, everything we want involves the state. Am I allowed to do that? Will the government let me do it? Who's going to feed my children? The state. Who's going to look after my mum? The state. Can I get a job? Ask the state. It never used to be like this. It used to be where English men, British men and women were kings and queens of their own castles. And we never asked permission to do things unless the law said you couldn't do it. And we would run our own lives. We would make our own choices. We'd raise our own children the way we wanted to raise them, sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly. But I say to people all the time, the greatest thing about you running your life, even if you make mistakes, is if you make a mistake and damage your life, you made that mistake. It means you can change that mistake. If you give all the power over to the state and they make mistakes, you can never change a government making mistakes. So I want to shrink the size of the state. I still want social benefits. I still want a welfare state. I've seen real poverty. I don't want that. But our welfare system is turned into a destination of choice. People are making a choice not to work and sit on benefits and have a half-decent life. That's destroying them. I want more kings and queens, British kings and queens, running their lives, running their families, running their communities.
Do you think, though, that when it comes to corporations and how things were, you know, when I was growing up, there was a corner shop that sold the the fruit and veg, and then there was a little newspaper shop and things like this, and all of that is turned into franchises. Everything is becoming this globalized monster, if you will. When it comes to jobs, right, we're losing the lower tier jobs to AI and self-service and things like this. Do you think that we're entering into an overpopulated, I don't know what the right word is, but not enough jobs available at this point? And what can we do to kind of solve all of that?
So every time we invent a new technology, we're always fearful that's going to be the end of jobs. We had it with the Industrial Revolution. That's where we get the word sabotage from, because French, what were they, working on machines, would throw their sandals into the cogs, and those sandals were called sabage. That's where we get the word sabotage. Trying to break the machines to keep their jobs. We've always had this.
That's interesting.
And what tends to happen is technology does remove so many jobs, but then it produces other jobs in other ways we never could imagine until those jobs were invented. So we do need to be aware of that. And a lot of the low-skilled jobs will go. And there's many jobs we've got now available in the country that don't need to be done by people. So when we say we need immigrants to pick fruit, we don't need immigrants to pick fruit. We have robots already. Have you ever seen a strawberry picking machine?
Yep.
These little robots with like 18 arms go out and just pick red strawberries. So, we can replace those jobs. We're having less children. So, the native population now is having 1.4 children per couple, and it should be 2.1 for replacement rate. So if we could just run the country better, many of our problems would be managed, and we could manage it into a better place.
I see where you're going with that. But again, for me, it's just seeing this destruction of, the Ubers are destroying the taxi drivers, the AI's replacing office jobs and things like this. It's a frightening one. And I'm a big believer in new technology will bring new jobs and things like this. I'm fully on that. But it's a scary slope with the AI and the replacing of humans so abundantly. I was literally just watching a video of a falsely identified man in Las Vegas that was identified as a trespasser with 100% face match from an AI piece of software, falsely arrested and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of feel like we're entering into the future of, they don't want the peasant level humans, us, having to think. Okay, if they can give us a job where we're just pushing a red button when the red button lines up or lights up or whatever, just to make sure the AI has gives us something to do. I feel like they don't want us thinking for ourselves. Even in, it's going to head towards, even with the legal stuff, with the threats of digital IDs, and just what you were saying there about you getting cancelled. If this had been in 2025 when you'd said these things and you'd done them on social media, you might be in prison right now. What's your feelings on all of those things, the control of the nation, whether it's free speech or digital IDs?
So we're a creature that likes to control others. That's why we have kings, monarchs, dictators, tribal leaders. We always want to control the tribe. Not everybody, a good 5, 10, 15% of people in any group want to be leader. Most people don't want to be leader. They're quite happy following if that leader's competent. So we're always dealing with that 15. I'm making this up, about 15%. It could be more, it could be less. It's my guess. And I've seen this firsthand. So I spent a decade working in local government, and this is how local government works. So they look at a problem. So the problem is whatever. This is the problem. How are we going to solve this? Right. We need to get the people to do these things, to reject this, to do more of that, not to do that, whatever it is. And they implement a project for it, and it doesn't work because the people won't do it. And then the next question is, right, how do we force them to do that? Right. Let's fine them. Let's threaten them. Let's remove whatever they want. Right. We'll do that. That hasn't worked because people have free will and people will do whatever they want to do to a certain extent. That's not working. What can we do now? And you go down that line, and what really is at the end of that line, people in government and in other organizations saying to themselves and saying to others, if only I could rule these people with an iron fist, they would have better lives because I'm better than them. Look at my life. I've been to university. I've got a good job, good pension. I'm a professional. I'm being paid to help these people, these peasants, but they won't do as they're told because they're too stupid to know what a good life looks like. And I need to be harder on them to give them a better life. And when you hear, I mean, they're not as blunt as that, but they're the conversations that are being had. And when I listen to those conversations, it's like, do you realize you sound like Stalin? For the greater good, you're willing to come down hard and penalize people for the so-called greater good. You're not a god. You're a human. You know better. You're no more valuable than the people you're actually looking down upon. And we need to get to a stage where that's why I want less government. That's why I want more personal responsibility, because I don't want other people making choices for me and telling me how to live. And that's the number one aim of a government, is to tell you how to live, because they really all do believe they're better than everybody else.
Okay. I mean, for me, I'm just trying to imagine what would have to occur for this to happen, right? So we're obviously going to have to really bolster families staying together, right? So we have two parents. We'll need to have at least one parent working full time, one parent looking after the kids to a certain point, and then back to work in this theory. So when we look at the cost of living, and then we look at the wage situation with people, and the way that the government falsely declares how inflation is lower and all these things and wages are going up. Like, someone done the maths based off of Freddo's, Nick, right? The chocolate bar. And I think they worked it out that you used to be able to work an hour and buy 50 Freddos, right? And now you can work an hour and only buy 28 Freddos or something like that. And it's showing that wages are going up, sure, but they're not closing the gap between what it's costing us to live. So to completely remove the, and I'm not saying you want to remove all welfare and things like this. And for me, I've always said that there must be a solution for people who are on welfare to guide them back into being self-sufficient. It's the same with prison rehabilitation. It's like there's so many broken systems here that lead to perpetual cycles, I guess. And whether that's handouts or whether that's poor rehabilitation, it all points to people that, for whatever reason, whether it's social class or whatever, have not had the right path in life and have not been able to have that self-sufficiency. And looking around at how the rest of the world is going, it's not a hopeful world for people right now. What we're seeing in this country is we are now secondary to anyone who may wish to come over here through whatever means they see fit. And I think a lot of people, that's what's getting their back up in this country right now. And when we talk about these global forces, we all agree, right, that this seems like a preordained mass importation of a certain demographic of refugee, or however we want to put it, to what seems to be mainly white Christian nations, right? We've seen what's happened in France and Italy. Poland's managed to nip it in the bud 5 years ago and are now being seen as who we should be trying to emulate, or who Italy and Paris and Sweden are trying to emulate. Is there any hope, for people like yourself, Nick, when you're up against, in my opinion, and you can call me a conspiracy theorist, what is a centuries-old group of bloodlines that are pulling the puppet strings of this ball spinning through space? How uphill of a struggle is this going to be for you guys? Because it seems like a nightmare.
It seems like a nightmare, and to be fair, it is a nightmare. Is it as bad as we think it is? I'm not too sure. I mean, it's horrendous. I'm not downplaying it. I'm just saying it. It can be overcome, and we're
Okay.
seeing the green shoots at the moment. 6 months ago, nobody was talking about mass deportation of illegal immigrants. Now, Reform are talking about it, and the Tory Party is talking about it. We're now talking about remigration. The Labour Party is talking tough on illegal immigration now. They'll do nothing about it. I know that, but at least they're talking tough on it. We've got Raise the Colours project all over the country, flags everywhere. We've got demonstrations every day outside migrant hotels. Things are changing, and they're changing faster and faster. We're still in the foothills of this, obviously, but we will reach a tipping point. Politicians are catching up. So I can see the end of the tunnel on this. I can see big change coming over the next 5 years. And I think 10 years from now, we'll probably be living in a different country. And when the history books are written about this time now, it'll be a blip. It'll be a blip when we all went mental, when suddenly our politicians didn't have a backbone, when we didn't elect politicians who put the country first. And they'll be writing about this for decades and decades. I'd like to explore a little bit more what you said then about
Sure.
it being orchestrated.
Yeah. Please. Yeah. Let's listen. Yeah. Please.
Because my go-to by working in government, my go-to all the time is incompetence, because I've seen it firsthand. And I can explain not everything, but most things by incompetence in the public sector. Now, that doesn't mean there's not people in shadows wanting to control countries, wanting more power, wanting the United States of Europe. Those people have always existed. I'm not sure, but I don't know that much about it. So
Sure.
I think what I'd like to ask you is, apart from having the power themselves of a united Europe, I mean, who doesn't want to be emperor of Europe? Most people have done, ranging from Napoleon to Hitler to whoever. People have wanted to rule continents. Of course they have. Who are those people you think, or which organizations do you think now are the representation, the new modern version of those people?
Well, we can definitely talk about the organizations. Some of the family names we have to redact, sadly, because of their capabilities of shutting people up. But Nick, for me, I don't believe that once you get to a certain level in politics, any of it makes any difference. I believe everything has been preordained and planned. The Jeremy time, when we were all locked in our houses, a prime example of the NHS advising people to be injected with poison. I had to, when my daughter was born at Christmas, I refused. I mean, it was an absolute scene in the hospital because I was refusing any doctors to do prick tests, anything. And they were like, "Oh, well, you should trust us. We're the NHS." And I'm like, "I should trust you. You're the NHS. What about all of the vaccinated victims that you trusted?" And for me, there's no excuse for what is happening in this country. It is far beyond the point of debate that this wasn't orchestrated. If the government wanted to stop this, they would just get people with large sticks with points on them, okay, to just pop the boats, all right? There's this thing called international waters, right? There's so much that can be done. France has now been talking with Labour, and if the new 30-year-old president gets voted in, they're going to do a one-in, one-out deal with the UK. So how does that solve a problem if you've got 5 million people that shouldn't be here and you're swapping them out for another 5 million people that shouldn't be here? When we have infrastructures that are being crippled by citizens being the foreign nationals being funded by our taxes, it's beyond treason. It's beyond anything that I can comprehend. And for me, that is what I see as the most blatant form of orchestrated activity, is this mass importation, because it's happened in so many other countries. I don't know what the end goal is. I used to think that it was get as many of people imported in, create some terrorist moments to have the public beg us to be saved, and we'll give us the digital IDs if you save us. Send away the foreigners and we'll take the digital IDs. That's what I thought was going to happen, but it's way past that now, man. We're talking about an army that's been shit sent over here, and not just here, and the whole ethos behind the people that are coming here does not line up with our entire culture. And that's what scares me, because I never thought I'd see the day where we're discussing Sharia law being part of the UK. The suffragettes went through quite a bit of shenanigans to make sure women got the vote, and we're just going to just turn all that back for a foreign invasion. It's mad. So that's my most recent thing that points towards a whole. But Nick, I'm gonna take everything off the table here. This comes down to something that is a little bit more unknown. Okay, this isn't just about money. This isn't just about power. There's mystical and occultish forces that intertwine with all of this. We've seen it in Hollywood. We've seen it with politicians, whether it's record labels having ceremonies done over music lyrics and all of this kind of stuff. The testimonies are wild. And when you see individuals like Michelle Lamy, who's one of this fashion icon, Nick, and she is a very evil woman when it comes to her practices. The deities she worships and stands for are very dark. And these are the people that are rubbing shoulders with the elites, the politicians, the Podestas, the Clintons, the Lady Gagas, all of this. So you got to ask yourself, if you, right, decided you were going to go and hang out with somebody that looked like a crazy satanic black-fingered witch, okay, as a politician, right, would you not think to yourself, that's not going to look great for me, hanging out with them? That's probably one picture in the front of the sun. I'm probably going to be done. Do you know what I'm saying? So what is the allure that puts that worry and pacifies that to the side? Well, she's a fashion icon. She's an artist. She's this, it's that. But is it the allure of the occult? Is it the allure of the thing that money can't buy? That's what I think draws a lot of these people in. That's what I think a lot of what took place on certain islands has to do with all of this. So for me, I think there is a very large global plot. I couldn't sit here and frame out what I think their entire end goal is. But I'll be honest with you, I have never seen a year like 2025. Evil has done great this year, right? Charlie Kirk, eliminated. Virginia Giuffre, eliminated. Like the weirdest ever war that started, right? Then freaking Trump's on the television swearing 3 times on live TV, freaking out about something. He sends over bombs, and apparently the war just ends, but it continues. There's so much of it seems like decisions made off of a panicked politician making it. It almost seems frantic to me. But I don't know what's coming, Nick, but we refer to this time as the Great Awakening, right? I don't know if you've heard people refer to that. A lot of people are wising up to the BS that we're getting fed. They're starting to be able to palate and be able to go through a conversation about the possibility of grooming gangs and what we call PDF files on YouTube, cover-ups and things like this, because up until this point, people couldn't handle it. They didn't want to imagine a world where politicians are doing this and all the rest. But we're 30 years on from all that now, and people are sick of the nonsense and the cover-ups. I just went off on one of you there, Nick. I'm not going to lie, man. Just sort of,
no, it's okay. You raised some very good points. Humans, for whatever reason, have been designed to believe in God. You know, 99% of all humans ever to exist have believed in deities and gods, whatever that God was.
Yep, I'm with you.
Christianity over the last 100 years has turned weak and pathetic.
Yep.
And it's not a religion now that people want to join because it's strong. It doesn't, it knows where it's going. It's got these commandments. We see bishops now, female bishops in the Church of England. We had one the other day. I'm not sure she was a bishop, but she was saying she's had 3, and she's got a rainbow scarf on at the pulpit going, when I had my 3 abortions, I felt God was with me. And I'm going, no, love, that was the devil. That was the devil you felt, not God.
A wild picture you've just painted in my head there. Okay.
So Christianity, has tried to be so tolerant that it's destroying itself. I mean, there may be a resurgence of a stronger Christianity coming through now. I know that's a given. So people who themselves think they're a type of God are looking for a God stronger than them. They're not going to go to Christianity. That's why, Islam itself looks quite popular to certain people because it's a masculine religion. So that doesn't surprise me that people are turning to the dark arts, turning to all this crazy rubbish. And when they do that, they get answers to problems. So suddenly there's an answer here for these things that where Christianity over the last 100 years doesn't give you any answers, but they give you answers. And I can see the appeal of that. And then when you get some powerful people doing that, other people then are followers. Oh, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And if I'm one of them, maybe I'll get benefits. Maybe I'll be noticed. I'll be different. I'll be unique. I'll look a bit special. So all that is attracting people all the time. And I would imagine that's why, PDF files, those grooming groups are very popular, and it always has been throughout the history of time. But we wanted a religion to stop that sort of base behavior. So I think morally, a lot of this comes down to morality. We've lost our morality. What I think is right and wrong can now be completely different to what you think is right and wrong. So therefore, when we're having discussions and conversations or debates, we're talking past each other all the time, because what I think you're saying isn't what you're saying, because you're basing it all on different foundations to what I'm basing my morality on. And that miscommunication is pushing us further and further apart. And then something exotic comes along and it's like, I'll have a bit of that, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was watching, I can't remember what I was watching, but they were talking about how in the 90s, we would all go to school or work on a Monday. We'd all be talking about the same shows because there was only 5 channels. It's about now you could have 10 people in a room on 10 devices, all looking at 10 different things. And it's like this hyper individualism, even down to what we used to know as cultural norms of, discussing what the latest episode of Friends, for example, right? That used to be the big season when I was a kid, right? And we don't have that now. We just binge the whole series. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but Netflix have just bought Warner Brothers.
All right.
Netflix, right? That little app you would download on your phone a few years ago, right, has just paid cash money for all of Warner Brothers, okay, and all of their IPs. What is going to happen, Nick? Right? I mean, digital-based everything is consuming the world, right? And I'm here for it. Like I love AI, right? Because for someone like me, I say this: it's bad for creative teams and businesses, great for creative individuals. That's the way I look at it, right? And I mean, it's one thing looking at the creative arts, but the way that AI is sweeping is scary for me. But back to what you were saying about the allure of the occult, I genuinely feel like it's going to be a mixture of, you get to a certain point in your life and you miss the feeling of being accepted by a group. It's been a long time because you're at the top of your game. Everyone's looking up to you. And now you're somebody who's this pinnacle of social life who may be at the bottom of the ladder of some secret society now. And that makes you feel like you're part of something and you're working through something again. It's the unobtainable for those who have everything, but a lot of these societies are more like societies with secrets now, as opposed to secret societies. I mean, a lot of them are fairly public. Do you see the sort of the issue with behind closed doors politics and secret groups, and how prevalent has that been in your journey in politics in the UK? Freemasons and all the classics.
Yeah, I tried looking into the Freemasons. I wanted to speak to people on my podcast about it. I only got one gentleman who had a little bit of knowledge. Secrets are dangerous. That's why we have secrets. Secrets can be powerful. Secrets are information. Should we be having the Freemasons in top ranks of the police, in the judiciary, and all those things? Well, if it was a normal club, you'd say, well, what's the point? But when they have this reputation, and when it's portrayed as a secret organization with different levels, and then that's where it muddies the water. And I don't know much about it to come down on one side or the other. All I know is if it's true what we hear about the Freemasons, then that's not good for democracy, because we're bypassing certain institutions, certain rules to enhance people's careers that we like, who are part of our group. And why would you want to promote someone who's part of your group if you weren't getting something out of it along the way? And that's why we have groups, because groups, and we're a tribal creature. So these groups are basically representations of the tribe, because up to a couple of thousand years ago, we're living in tribes, and everything was that it was us. It was a tribe against the world, because the tribes had to cooperate within themselves, otherwise they would die. And we've just transplanted the tribe now for groups. Political parties are exactly the same. You can join one party, everyone loves you. You leave that party, everybody in that party hates you now. But you loved me yesterday, but you hate me today. So it's this tribalism we're looking at all the time. But the secret societies themselves, I mean, I am sure there is shadowy organizations out there, some we've never heard of, some we may have heard of, who are trying to pull strings, who are trying to influence politicians, who are trying to buy politicians, and maybe even plant politicians lower down in the hope and funding them to go up the ranks and suddenly be, a serious politician, or even a prime minister. I'm sure all that's happening, because why wouldn't it happen? Because it makes perfect sense. We see foreign countries doing this to each other, planting long-term sleepers.
Of course.
Yeah. So organizations, shadow organizations will be doing this themselves. And then we've got to think about, well, we know what a foreign organization wants? It's usually our enemies, and they want the destruction of the UK. That makes sense. What would another organization want? Well, they either want money, power, or both of them. And having people at the top of government, top of industry, top of all the institutions offers you opportunities to influence the people who have the money, who have the power, and that then can benefit you in your group in many, many different ways. So that's definitely happening. Absolutely. Of course it is. It's human nature. How we go about highlighting that, and how we go about identifying people, and how we go about stopping that is a serious conversation, that the country needs to have.
Yeah, honestly, I make the joke that it's going to take a natural disaster, like a solar flare that knocks out all the electricity, and we're back to the Stone Age, right? And I'm sorry to say that there'll definitely be some swift elimination of problematic politicians, judges, and things like this. Not by me. I'm a very calm individual, but I'm just saying it's the apocalypse in this scenario. That's what it's going to take, right? Because we are so cooked at this level of society, Nick. Like, this is the thing. People, when they talk to people like you, or they talk to like a regular policeman, or a local MP and things like this, these are normal people. Okay, you're all normal people. Okay, and it's when you start trying, and I used my friend John Wedger as an example of this. Joined the police force, right? And seen the child protection side of it all, how horrifically underfunded. Like he said, and he said this, I'm paraphrasing here. He said the training was 5 minutes on, child safety, but then a 3-day course on knowing how to do the appropriate handshake for the culture's that are in the UK so as not to offend anyone. So he went into the child protective side of it all, realized how corrupt it all was, realized how many judges and policemen were covering up the criminal acts of gangs and individuals. He became a whistleblower and was told blatantly, and again, John may not have said this, or he may have, I'm paraphrasing, the literal government came after him. Okay, his life was in danger, all the rest of it, and he's doing great work now. I mean, I do a podcast every week with him, and he was telling us yesterday about, is it JBL? Is that the website? It's a new, anyway. I've got that wrong, but I'll stick a link in the description. And the way that people are now looking at stuff that John's been talking about for the last decade is completely different. We're seeing traction now on cases that one's from like the 1960s out in Ireland that we covered on the podcast that's been reinvestigated because of the work that John's got snowballed. But do you think that individuals are like yourself, like John, when he joined the police force, are just not prepared for what lies ahead? Because it's going to be, you're going to see something, or you're going to hear about something and have to shut up or put your life in danger for it, or you're going to have to sell your soul. I mean, that's the way I see it. Unless you just stay at a certain, level, you know what I'm saying, of politics, because it's all dirty to me, Nick. Once you get up to the Downing Street level, do you know what I'm saying? It's just there's no excuse for the Jimmy Saviles. There's no excuses for the Prince Andrews. There's no excuses for that big fat dude from the 80s. What was his name? I can't remember.
Civil Smith.
Thank you. Yes, that monster.
Yeah.
It's all we've done a timeline, me and John, of people that were in the police force in the 50s that are now judges in the 70s that made terrible decisions that allowed children to be damaged, that are now handing out pitiful sentences or freeing individuals. It's bonkers, and for me, that's what people like you are about to come up against.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest lesson I learned was when I joined the council.
Okay.
And almost immediately I realized almost everybody was working with idiots. And I went into that job thinking, I'm going to be working with the cream of the cream here. They're going to be intelligent. They're going to be dedicated. They're going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
And I realized that most of them are idiots. The vast majority of them didn't care about anything they were doing. Even safeguarding, it would be, no, I'm going to tick this box and then I'm safe. And I don't really care about, is that person going to be safe over the weekend? I've ticked my box. I've sorted myself out. Where I was the opposite of that. And I only lasted a decade. I had to leave in the end. Yeah. And even when you're dealing with the politicians, I've dealt with politicians all the way from councillor all the way up to deputy prime minister and prime minister. I've dealt with them all. Wow. And none of them take your breath away. You realize, higher up you go, you realize that they become more and more average intelligence. Lower down, they become even less intelligent. But, you talk to MPs, you talk to ministers and prime ministers, none of them are rocket scientists at all.
Yeah.
But subconsciously, we think they are. And we always expect better from them because we think they're the cream of the cream. They're not. They're just like everybody else, as stupid, as flawed, as silly, as daft, as drunk as everybody else. But then talking about looking at the evil and who speaks up. We read this in history books. We see the people who were working, at the concentration camp guards in Nazi Germany. Yep. They were having to get drunk every single shift to do their job because they didn't want to do it. The morality was pulling on them, but they weren't willing to walk away. They weren't willing to not do the job.
There was no walking away, Nick. Let's be honest, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
There was either put them in there or get in there yourself. Those were your choices.
Yeah, but
also, I'm not defending the Nazis. Yeah, by the way. We're just two guys having a conversation right now. Okay, okay.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is they had to be drunk to do that job.
Yeah, you can understand that. You can understand.
Yeah, of course, and that's because they weren't automatically evil. They weren't. No, I'm sure one or two were psychopaths, laughing and smiling while they were doing.
Oh, there was wads. There was wads. But I mean, but like what I just said there, about the point about the average Joe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the super most evil, most corrupt officers that's going to be the average Joe back then doing that. It's going to be the freaking 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds that are getting dragged in for the service. So I imagine it was quite harrowing for everyone involved. You know what I mean? But you know, I'm sure some of them are off their nut though. I mean, I got to say,
they were. I mean, there's only a small percentage of people who you'd class as brave and heroes. Maybe it's 5%, maybe something like that. And you know, we see those people. Your friend John, the ex-copper from London, Maggie Oliver. You know, there's quite a few people you can point to. But most people are too cowardly to ever stand up and put their head above the parapet. They may have internal fights with themselves. It may lead to depression and suicide, but they would never, ever stand up. And I remember seeing this when all the Jimmy Savile stuff came out. And I remember famous people from the BBC and I think it was, what's she called? So, she started up Childline.
Oh God, I'll Google it. Hang on.
Yeah. She started up Childline. Esther Ransom. That's
Esther Ransom.
Esther Ransom.
You beat Google, mate.
And I remember her on TV being interviewed and asking these questions. And she said on TV, she heard all the rumors, but didn't tell anyone. And it's like, no wonder you set up Timeline, love. Not Timeline, Childline. Yeah. Because that was your way of trying to gain some forgiveness of yourself. So hearing all that stuff and did nothing. So most people are cowards. Most people are sheep.
I see it another way, Nick. I see it as she got found out for knowing about it, said that she turned a blind eye, was very much in the knowledge of it, and created the UK's largest network of access to UK vulnerable children to pass off to said PDF overlords. That's how cynical my world is, Nick. Because there's no turning a blind eye. Okay, there's no like it's the excuse. I'm done with the excuses. So if anyone who was part of that era who knew and turned a blind eye, like there should be criminal like consequences for allowing a child or a vulnerable person to go through what they went through just because you're a shite bag, basically, Nick. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's bonkers. It's really up there with the women that falsely accuse men of the R word. It's the same as that. It's a life destroyed because of an action of an R person, and they both should be subject to criminal repercussions for sure. But that's just the way I see it, because you just can't. We see when you see, if we were to sit down and get a cork wall and get the red string out and the tacks and go full 1960s like cop duo on this, your faith in humanity would just be over, Nick, because when you see it and you see all the politicians and the police who are now judges and the politicians who are now this or that, and how they have rubbed each other's backs throughout all of it, it's bonkers. And then
I completely agree with you. I mean, I look at humans as nasty, evil, violent creatures. I like to think that I understand human nature quite a bit. So these things don't surprise me. I've spent 2 decades trying to overcome some of these things to make sure we can stop people being cowards. I mean, that's why we need to reward and we need to respect heroes, people like John and Maggie Oliver. Because if we persecute heroes, then we'll have less heroes in the world. We need to reward heroes for being heroic. And that's why all our myths and legends are always around individuals who go above and beyond, who put their lives on the line for people, usually people they don't know. That's what makes them heroes. And we need to get back as a nation to celebrate those very rare human traits.
Do you know, you mentioned, actually, let me just, before I bring up that point again, what was the thing no, my ADHD is all over the place now, and it's erasing everything that I'm thinking about. So I'll go back to your previous point. Earlier on, you'd said that we were a kingdom, and it was people wanted to be kings and all the rest of it. And really, we're kind of the first free thinking humans, because a lot of people don't realize kingdoms, the castle with the wall around it, you ain't leaving those walls if you're one of the peasants. Like you're not just knocking on the drawbridge and going, oh, I'm nipping out, I'll be back in a couple of days. There's none of that. There's none of that. So you're in there. And like the psychologists have questioned whether or not humans do better when they're just told what their class is and told what to do, right? I mean, I strongly disagree, right? But I love the human experiment. You know what I'm saying? Like I love it. And I think to myself, have we as a nation had all of our free thinking, our liberties, and our ability to be who we want to be weaponized against us, right? Because everyone has rights. Everyone, as soon as you touch British soil, you have rights, all this kind of stuff. And I feel like it's gotten to a point of madness now. Like children are having Easter taken from them, okay? Like if I go to Dubai or if I go anywhere, I have to fit in. Do you know what I'm saying? I have to fit in or it ain't going to be good for me. And it really frustrates me that the country that I've lived in I'm not a Christian. I'm a pagan. Do you know what I'm saying? I have very different gods. I believe in all the gods. But as far as the UK goes, Jesus, a guy that is like peace and love and Easter and Christmas, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the Christian country that I grew up in, even though my religion's very different. You know, one of my gods is a freaking war god. You know what I'm saying? How do you fit that into 2025 when you're a podcaster? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's scary to see, oh, well, if Britain doesn't care about its religion, we'll just completely assimilate it into something else. And that's the scary thing for me. And you actually scared me a little bit, Nick, when you were talking about 5-year plan, 10-year plan. There ain't going to be a 5 or 10-year plan. There's going to be, in my opinion, the history books are not going to be talking about a blip. They're going to be talking about the last civil war that took place in Britain that occurred in 2026 or 2027. And it's a scary concept. It's a scary concept. But and I said this to you, Nick, and I said it to my viewers, where is your guys' line on this? Like, is it going to be too much when it's 5:30 in the morning and you're woken up by a certain religion's call to prayer? Is that going to be where the line is? When is going to be your line? Ask yourself, because we said before the show, Nick, I mean, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, things wouldn't be happening like this. It would be seen as an invasion. It would be seen as an infringement of our lifestyle and rights. But because of the modern world, it's refugee status and it's other things. Look at Poland. They took in 2 million refugees from the Ukraine, 2 million, mainly women and children, because, you know, the men are fighting a war, Nick, you know, makes sense. So that's what I think is terrifying a lot of people right now. The elderly. I've got friends who used to love going walks. They can't go on walks anymore because they're too scared. Let me ask you this, Nick, right? As a crazy long-haired dude on the internet and you as a politician, how would you feel about legalizing very powerful tasers for every woman in the UK?
I can see the pluses for that. But what we've seen when people carry weapons is criminals normally take the weapons off the person, because the woman carrying a taser would be very hesitant to use it. I'm not saying she wouldn't use it, but she would hesitate. That hesitation is all that violent nutcase needs to take the taser off her, and then she's even in more trouble. And those sort of answers to these problems for me are secondary, rather than trying to deal with keeping that woman, keeping herself safe. Why don't we, the country, men in general, the state, the government, why don't we solve the problem itself?
Because women have been asking for that since they got the vote. So now that we've had 50 years of no one listening, right?
Yeah.
We now need to push that aside because we're no longer asking. We've been asking for decades. Okay. So no one's listened. So now it's drastic action. So what I would say to that would be a mandatory firearms charge of a minimum 10-year sentence for any man using a taser. So if that person was to take the taser off the woman and decided to go and assault her or whatever, he's going to have to think about an extra 10 years getting slapped on him. Because I don't know what world we live in, but the world I'm living in now, my daughters and my female friends are scared to live their life. So if they go out in a group, they're still vulnerable. But if 3 or 4 of them have got freaking tasers, right? Like, it's going to, do you know what it's going to do? It's going to eliminate that percentage of opportunistic criminal, not the psychopath career criminal, not the one who, you know, you see Netflix series about and all this kind of stuff. But I think the opportunistic one, it would. I also believe that teenagers should be able to hand in knives in exchange for pepper spray, and they can just go pepper spray the hell out of each other and have their gang warfares with pepper spray. Knives for pepper spray, okay? Because we need radical solutions, bro. Like, we need radical solutions because nothing's getting any better, you know. And again, that would be my grassroots solution for this thing. I mean, arm the women.
I get that, but I would rather deport all the illegal migrants in the first place.
Yeah, let's do that first.
So that will solve, you know, 80% of these issues. Deport all illegal migrants. Yeah, okay. They're all gone. And then why don't we bring back life sentences for male perverts who rape women? Why don't we bring back the death penalty? I would like to see. I don't mean the old death penalty. I mean a new one, a modern one.
Yes, Nick. I've already designed it. A massive food blender right in the middle of London. You wheel that out. They get lowered in feet first. By the time the public see one of those happening, sexual crimes are going to drop by 90%. Okay, bring out the blender, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we have it for certain crimes because the death penalty is a good way of showing people that justice has been done.
Yeah,
and because, you know, if you murder people, sexually assault people, and you're out between, you know, 8 and 15 years, is that justice? I don't think that's justice. So therefore, we need to bring justice back. We need to fix fix the police, fix the courts, fix the criminal justice system. And that will give us the country that we're looking for.
Well, here's the thing, because now I'm going to completely contradict what I just said, right? Because I don't think our criminal justice system focuses on anything other than creating animals, right? You look at Norway, okay, and how they deal with criminals. It's bonkers, right? Like that school shooter that swam out to the island, shot all those kids. He's living in a house on an island with a kitchen and the internet and roommates, and he's got kitchen knives. He orders his food, it gets delivered. He can go and play sports. If he tries to swim off the island, he will be sniper shotted by about 12 people. So they take away your freedom and not the humanity, and their whole focus is rehabilitation, right? Now, obviously, Nick, my evolution hasn't got past the pitchfork era. Like I've still got too much pitchfork DNA left in me, because they interviewed one of the fathers of one of the kids he shot, and I think it was actually the guy that done Bowling for Columbine that done this interview, and he said, "Do you not think this guy should be, you know, face the death penalty for killing your son?" And he's like, "No, I want to see him back in society and contributing." Dude, Norwegians are so far past the rest of the Western world if that's what a father is saying about the killer of his son, because I'm still at the skin him and leave him for the ants mindset. So do you think that's our detriment? Because we want to see our pound of flesh, and we don't necessarily put our focus in fixing the problems. Like, and I know it's a tough one, because again, we've just talked about publicly executing a certain demographic of criminal, but that's a whole other argument. Do you not think that we are part of our own problem because of where our mind's at. Because I don't see any good that comes from prison. I don't see anyone coming out of prison and being able to contribute. I see exactly what we're back to. It's handouts, right? So it's an absolute fair play to you, Nick, for getting into politics, mate. Because I mean, where do you start with it all? But what's your take on how we prosecute and rehabilitate? What's your take on that?
So 20 years experience in this field now.
Okay.
Rehabilitation doesn't work. I'm not for rehabilitation at all. Okay. I'm for the death penalty for serious criminals.
I love that, Nick. I love the bluntness, mate. I love it.
I don't beat around the bush. If you don't want an answer, don't ask me a question.
I love it, mate.
I want prisons to be mini hells. I want people going to prison, coming out going, I am never going in there again.
Okay.
At the moment, people come out of prisons and go, God, that was inconvenient. 4 years I've wasted. That was really inconvenient. That's the wrong message. I want them coming out going, I'm never going back. Now, we need to be locking people up. We need to be locking people up for longer. The peak, there's been lots of studies around the world on this now. If you lock up a small percentage of men from 18 to 32, who are the career criminals, if you lock them up from 18 to 32, that's their peak offending years. If you do that, crime falls through the floor in your society. We know who the criminals are, and what we're doing is we're playing catch and release all the time. We're putting all our money to catch the same couple of 100,000 people, and then we catch them and release them again. We need to hammer them. We need to lock them up until they're past their peak offending years, and that will solve a lot of our crime problems in the country. I'd also like to see prisons actually cost us not a penny. I want prisons to make a profit. We have 90,000 men locked up in prisons. They should be work camps. They should be paying for themselves. They should be making a profit.
I agree.
Sat in their cells for 23 hours a day.
Yeah, see all the low-end criminals, like the non-violent ones, all of them. Get them putting the lines on the road, mate. Like, get them doing that. I wholeheartedly agree, because I'll tell you something, mate, right? See the low-end lazy, right, rattling Valium-fueled criminal enterprise shoplifter criminal, right? He ain't going to want to work 12 hours a day, bro. He ain't going to want to lift those bits of concrete, man. And yeah, that would be another one of my many. I could stamp full of approve some workforce stuff for sure. Because why not? Do you know what I'm saying? Why not?
We keep treating criminals as if they're victims as well. And I'm adamant they're not victims. They were born or they live in one of the greatest countries ever to exist on the planet. They've had all the opportunities put in front of them that everybody else has had. They've had a free education, free NHS. You know, they've been looked after, they've been fed, and they've turned out the way they've turned out. Well, cry on someone else's shoulder. I don't want to listen to your pity story about why you're a criminal. What we're going to do is we're going to lock you up until you're no longer a danger to decent people in a decent society.
Damn. Yeah, I'm telling you, that's one way of doing it, Nick. You're not wrong, and I can tell. Like, you can tell the things that I've had enough with this country, right? I can tell you've definitely had enough with what you've seen with lighter sentences and people coming out and basically skipping their way out of prison and saying all that. Because I've known guys, right, who've done crime to get 6 months because their missus is a nightmare. I mean, they're proper, like, 6'5" monster criminals. Like, they're not like they're monster. They're going in there and making money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And if you're a good-looking criminal, you get sent inside, and there's a very good chance you can actually sleep with the female prison officers.
Oh, dude. I know exactly what you're referencing. Do you know the day that happened, right?
There's a different case every single week.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so on I talk about it on YouTube and on Twitter. Every single week, there's almost a case of this in the UK.
Damn! I thought that crazy OnlyFans officer lady that put that video out there.
Tip of the iceberg, she was.
Mad. See, that's interesting. Okay, no, going back to what you were saying about studies about 18 to 32 criminal activity, was there any evidence of countries that had a national service having a different demographic of criminality? Like countries where you've got to do like 4 years national service or anything. Was there a difference in the criminality in those countries, for example? Do you know?
I've not read anything.
Yeah, I just wondered because that's something that I'm starting to stress about, right? Low end jobs are going, okay? Guaranteed the French tourist situation is going to lead to some mad wars, okay? Which means we're going to need some soldiers, right?
Yeah.
Which means all these desperate people needing jobs. I wonder how sweet the deals, I wonder how sweet the TV adverts for the British Armed Forces are going to start getting over the next few years. I wonder how much upping of the school, high school involvement we're going to see with armed forces, because it's going to be a great option, right? Yeah. No more flipping burgers. There's no one needing to be going through stuff at the counter. I'm telling you, I guarantee you it will be sign up now and get a free iPad and a free iPhone 7. I guarantee that's how they're going to get the TikTok generation into the army, Nick.
Let me really upset you now.
Let's go for it, Nick. I
think it was last year or the beginning of this year, they did a poll on young people aged 18 to maybe 45, something like that, about fighting for the country.
Yep.
So one of the questions was, if the UK was at war, would you fight for the UK? 45% of people in that bracket said no. Then they asked another question. The UK is about to be invaded. Would you fight for the UK then?
Yes.
And something like 25% of people said no. So we're getting young people to join the army is going to be very difficult. Most of them would not even fight for the army if we're at war and if we're going to be invaded.
Well, again, we'll just have to see how they repackage it, okay? Because if they remove all the war stuff and just hit you with admin jobs, you know what I'm saying? Because the machines, the future robotic warriors of our army, they're going to need someone to like oil them in that. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a weird future, Nick. You know, where I talk about this a little bit jokingly, but it's kind of heading that way. Like it really is. And I wonder what the plan is for all this, from my global cabal bloodline mindset here. Because, and also as well, I'm not for national service, just to want to put that out there to everybody. It was just interesting when you said the demographic there, because then I imagine if you had 4 years national service when you were 20, came out of that when you were 24, I wonder if those countries have a difference in how people see things. Because I believe if you're given everything, you don't give a shit about anything, right? Yeah. Look at some of those council houses you see on the telly, man, right? Like dogs crapping all over houses and that. If you bought that house, there's no way your dog's crapping all over it. It's just not happening, right? It's just not happening. People, the mindset of community is gone. The mindset of feeling safe is gone. The mindset of being able to afford all the things we want and live a life that we think we should have gone. It's a bit bleak. We need something to happen. We really do. Like
we need a disaster. I don't want, before people complain that I want a disaster, I don't want to, I'm just saying, if we had a disaster, if we had,
just remember, Nick, you're a politician on the internet saying we need a disaster. We're just two guys on the internet talking, people. If a disaster happens in the next 48 hours, it's nothing to do with Nick. Okay, we're just two guys here having a conversation.
Nick predicted it. He's part of the cabal.
He's part of the cabal, baby. He's a shill. Yeah. Carry on.
If we had a decent sized war, if we had a meteor hit somewhere in the world and we had, a nuclear winter, if if COVID came back and was a proper disease this time, not a made up one, and suddenly, many people died in this country, industry stopped, we started struggling, people went hungry for the first time in centuries. That would pull people together. Tribal instincts would take over, would pull together as societies, as a nation, would help each other again, because we would all know we've got to rely on each other. What's happened over the last 50 years or my lifetime is life has become more and more comfortable. We've got no challenges. We've got the only real stress we have now is first world problem stress. I can't afford a new iPhone. That isn't a real problem.
Right.
And then you look at how that's affecting us. It's 25%. It's either 20%. No, it's 20%. 20% of all British women in the UK today are on antidepressants. 5,000 men in this country every year kill themselves. We abort 250,000 babies every single year. These aren't healthy stats. This is a dying nation when you're looking at those things. And it's because we've lost our way and we haven't got anything to aim for anymore, apart from something material, a new iPhone, a new holiday, a new car, blah, 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 blah. There's nothing pulling us together. And the best way of demonstrating this is if you was lying on your deathbed and you've got 30 seconds left, you're saying to the people around you, I wish I'd been a better son. I wish I'd been a better father. I wish I'd not fallen out with Jimmy, my best friend. No one is lying on their deathbed going, I wish I'd had more money. I wish I had a bigger house. I wish I had the new iPhone. It's only when we're dying with our last breath do we realize finally what's important in life.
You don't know what you've got till it's gone. Classic analogy. Well, like, you know, it's interesting. It was an interesting conversation because, like, you're in it. You know, you are in the grassroots of the absolute poop storm that is UK politics, and you know, I'm excited to see what happens over the next few years because some of us, we've had enough of this. Had enough. Okay, why is women and children not feeling safe walking the streets? Why is that not where the line is? That should be where the line is for everyone. That should be where everyone draws the line.
Well, you'd imagine the line should have been drawn a couple of decades ago when we started finding out hundreds of thousands of poor white girls had been gang raped on an industrial scale. We thought that might have been the line. It wasn't.
No. But here's the thing. That's grassroots criminality as well. That goes hand in hand with politics. But even the politicians, we're not going right the way up to the top here. You know, the stuff that happens right up at the top, we don't even hear about, Nick. Okay. We see it in the Epstein case, or we see it in the Diddy case. But isn't it interesting that in the grand scheme of the PDF files, the cabal, and the secret world, it's okay for you to be a pervert. Epstein, he's a pervert. Diddy, he's a pervert. The minute a global conspiracy starts to even get whispered, it is shut the frick down. We've seen it in the Epstein case. We've seen it with the Diddy case. And isn't it so convenient that Virginia Giuffre wholeheartedly, definitely unalived herself? I'm sure. Biggest load of crap I've ever heard in my life. She was the walking loose end of a royal family scandal and the biggest human transportation ring case in history. The very definition of a loose end. And again, someone just brought up the McCanns. Sadly, we're out of time for that one. Well, just 20 minutes.
Let me end on this. So if you can have a politician who takes us into an illegal war in Iraq, which leads to the death of over 1 million people and British soldiers, and then ruins international relationships for decades and causes migration flows. If politicians can do that at the drop of a hat, do you think they'll think twice of offing you?
Mate, thank you for being here, Nick. That's the soundbite to end it on. That was beautifully done. So listen, thank you for being here, Nick. It's been a great conversation, and I wish you all the best. You know, and I hope everything goes well for you with what you've got going on, politics-wise, job-wise, career-wise. What's going on YouTube-wise for you? What have you got next coming up? Content. I'll make sure all your links are added as well. Here we are. We're at Bosch.
Yeah. Well, I put probably 2-3 videos out a day, some long-form interviews, some just short clips of me moaning about something. So follow me on that. And here's an offer you can't refuse. If I ever become a politician and get elected, invite me back on, and I'll tell you what's going on behind the scenes. If I'm elected, I'm going to be everyone's nightmare.
Okay, well, you got a promise to make me chief of the secret police then.
Right. Okay.
Right. Nice one. Okay. Right. Thanks, Nick. Thanks to the mods. Thanks to the Sean Atwood channel. Thank you to all at home. Thank you all for being here. Like and share, and we'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Cheers.